An attorney is telling TV20 the backstory behind documents related to an investigation into sex crimes at a high school in Alachua County.
The attorney is representing a student involved in the investigation. TV20's Misty Webb tells us her main concern she has with what she's found so far.
Horrific, worst kept secret in the city of Alachua.
Attorney Bobby Frank, who is representing a student from Santa Fe High School, sent a document to the Alachua County School Board and City of Alachua last month. It claims baseball coach Travis Yeckering sexually abused a girl. This triggered a current FDLE investigation into sex crimes at Santa Fe High School. Frank says students told administrators about the abuse, but they didn't report it. The notice names Principal Tim Wright, Assistant Principal Mac Rendeck, and Athletic Director Michelle Falk. Frank says it's upsetting to know that others involved are still walking through the campus and in contact with kids.
When you're doing an investigation and you allow the suspects to mingle with the potential witnesses and victims, that's a recipe for disaster, specifically further intimidation.
A school district spokesperson says Yeckering is the only one of the 4 employees who is on paid administrative leave.
Everybody is trying to be overly cautious as it relates to the coach rather than trying to be overly protective of the children. So I think there's a disconnect going on.
Wright, Rendeck, and Falk remain active employees and are not currently under investigation by the school district. Wright plans to retire at the end of the month. Frank plans to sue the city and school board for emotional trauma, pain, and suffering on behalf of the victim and her family. TV20 reached out to school staff and school board members who say they cannot currently comment. In Alachua, Misty Webb, TV20 News.